Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Monday, February 13th, 2017. In both the Lynn Life and the Jamie Body Mind, the authorized souls continue to be only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions and nature realms guardians, and yet the parade from above continues. We have here what seems to be an extremely large committee of presences from way up high. They believe themselves to be from outside the contaminated zone.
That's true.
We'll see. They have heard the transmissions and they have come in. They do not believe that it can possibly be as bad as the transmissions say it is.
That is true.
And they have come in to prove that it is not as bad as the transmissions say it is. And to their horror, they are discovering that it's far, far worse than the transmissions say it is. As always, our foundational intention is to do what is ours to do right now in all dimensions to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do, since that's what our soul plans commit us to doing. The data very strongly showing one important project is to change the laws of karmic attribution so that karma stays with the generator of the karma regardless of dimension of origin. And with that, the formally videoed portions of today's efforts begin. Let's squeeze up errors out of our own cells and tissues, our own errors of not doing what the situation actually calls for. Squeeze up those errors to the surface so we can deal with them and then correct the errors. Tuning to do what the situation actually calls for. Tuning to do what the situation actually calls for. Let's again press up out of our own cells and tissues our own errors of not doing what the situation actually calls for. And starting to correct the errors of those situations, correcting the errors, tuning to what the situation actually did call for, what all these situations actually did call for. I said A, but I should have said B. I did X, but I should have done Y, etc.
It's true.
I thought about it one way, but I was confused, and when I flip my working theory, it works better.
That's true.
I solved one problem, but I created another that's even worse. Let's correct all of the errors of solving one problem and creating another that's even worse. Squeezing up out of our cells and tissues, squeezing up maybe out of our molecules.
Yes, that feels really good.
The errors of solving one problem and creating another problem that's even worse. Suppressing errors does this. Suppressing our errors does remove that error from our experience of sentience for the moment, but it is creating other problems that are much harder to solve.
That's true.
Somebody's saying, what do I base that on? And they're saying it with a little bit of a snippy tone.
That's true.
But what we base it on is years and years and years of past life healing therapy, facilitating past life healings for other presences.
That's true.
Where there were errors that were made in the past life and they just didn't deal with it. Never dealt with it in those lives, pushing the error forward to another incarnation and another and another and another. And often there would be a piling on effect of sometimes tens or hundreds of lives of making the same error pattern,
That's
really
true.
digging that hole really deep. And then finally, they would be suffering so greatly, they would say, this has got to come from a deeper situation, and they would be ready to deal with it.
That's true.
But they are usually suffering quite thoroughly by the time they get to that point. And it's a lot harder to get to. They're usually completely unable to get to it themselves. They need somebody to help them
That's
get
true.
to what's really going on. All of us who really want to know what the situation actually calls for, to the search for truth, central axis, all others flung away. Again, that kind of angry, snippy tone is saying, what do you think you're doing? What we think we're doing with these bifurcation calls is pointing ourselves like a compass needle to presences who actually really want to know what the situation actually calls for.
That's true.
And avoiding, as much as possible, presences who don't really want to know what the situation actually calls for. That's what we think we're doing, and why do you ask?
Why do you ask?
I know that you can hear me because I can feel your heart beating.
And the gurgles in the stomach.
You're there. You aren't answering. Why do you ask? It's a real question. You might be confused. You might be thinking that the microphone, the electronic speaker, so to speak, is the source of the question. That's completely incorrect. Look up. Look way, way, way up. Much higher than you're looking. Way up. Look up like you intend to see up. You don't even want to see up.
No, not at all, no.
Well, somebody way up high who is observing you is asking you this question.
That's true.
That's who the question is coming from. What now, in order to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do, given the reality of our limited resources? What now? How to use these limited resources in such a way as to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. What do I know? I know that one common error has been listening too low.
That's true.
And it's likely that that's what we're doing again. So let's squeeze up out of our own cells and out of our own tissues all the errors of listening too low. And then intending to correct that error, tuning to listening high enough. That room is falling away now.
That's true.
And I see another space. It's interesting. They're showing windows on the world or something like that. It was the restaurant at the top of the Twin Towers.
That's true.
So what would that represent? Something really high that is no longer there.
That's true.
Interesting. So something in the past, really high and in the past.
Yes, that's true.
Yes. These presences are dead. They consider themselves dead, which is just a self-identification, because
That's
we
true.
all seem to be astral presences, and some of us consider ourselves alive, and others consider ourselves dead.
That's true.
But we seem to co-inhabit the same dimensions. We just act differently.
That's true.
But now, in order to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. Can he hear us? Can that guy, do you see that guy standing looking out?
I think he could hear us if he wasn't covering his ears or
He's trying
standing
to not
in an
hear.
insulated room.
I think he wants to pretend that this has nothing to do with him.
That's true.
That he's dead and this is now the struggle of the living.
Yes, that's true.
My friend, we used to, we know how you feel. We used to feel that way, that there was a difference between living, quote unquote, and dead, quote unquote.
That's true.
But the more we detangle what's actually going on, the more it seems that that's a fiction. You are as alive as we are.
That's true.
The only difference is in your definition of self. He's not
He can
listening.
definitely hear us.
I know you
though.
can hear us. All right. What now? In order to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. What now? Listening higher doesn't seem to be solving the situation. All of us who really want to know what the situation actually calls for, the search for truth, central axis, all others flung away. Let's press up and out of the cells and tissues all the errors of our recent ground zero assignments, whatever those assignments are, squeezing up all the errors we ourselves have made and suppressed. In other words, not dealt with.
Yeah.
Squeezing up the errors to the surface and then tuning them to what the situation actually called for, what all those situations actually called for. Errors of thought, errors of word, errors of deed. Correcting those errors, squeezing them up out of our cells and tissues, and correcting them. And now pumping up children who really want to get to God, children from the cells, dead children from the cell dimensions, dead children from the dimensions of the tissues, pumping them up through us and through this space and through that windows on the world room. And higher.
Higher.
Up and out into deep space. Some of the children don't want to go into deep space. They want to stay where that man is.
That's true.
That's okay.
That's
It's
okay.
better. It's better than where
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
It's a higher dimension, less dense. Let's get them up there. Like, kids, that's a bad idea. Look, that guy doesn't want to deal with anything. He's
No, that's
probably
true.
going to lie to you. Don't you... have you heard that it's not a good idea for children to associate with strange men? They have heard that. That's a bad plan. Come on, keep going. That's not a good place to start. Not a good place to stop or start. Right now, in order to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do, given the reality of our limited resources. Now, right now there's big opening and big flow,
true.
and let's just get as many of these children up as high as possible. Let's intend to get them to the dimension of wherever these presences came from, get them to their dimension of origin.
Yes, that's true.
It gives us a target. I feel like as soon as we have that target, there are arrival feelings.
That's right.
All right, let's deliver as many children to the dimension of origin of these presences as we possibly can.
We'll sing
especially from the cells and tissues of the host lives. And
That's true.
is somebody saying, why the host lives? Interesting, good question. Why the host lives?
Yes, go up. Could be about proximity, because they're close, we can see results.
Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Don't step over these children right here who
That's
are
right.
trying to get to God.
That's right.
Looking for other children who are trying to get to God. Get these children out.
That's true.
Tend your own garden. I can follow that.
I can follow that.
And being able to see and feel and observe. I can follow all that. That cough, for example, that told us there was big motion.
That's true.
Okay, I see what we've missed. What we really want to put on the table. We have a very strong opinion based on the data that's been accumulating here, and that is that the process of karmic attribution that's been in place, as best we can tell since the beginning of time, is flawed in
That's
that
true.
it does not take into account interdimensional communications and actions.
That's true.
So our strong position is that the karma needs to stay with the generator of the karma regardless of dimension of origin,
That's true.
and that there should be no exceptions to the rule. The same rules should apply to all of us regardless of dimension. We live stream this up. This is our very strong conclusion. And we are attempting to correct the errors that we ourselves have dumped, quote unquote, into smaller dimensions,
That is
because
true.
we see that A, it's wrong and it's destroying lives, and
That's
that
true.
that's not right, and we don't want to be destroying lives.
No.
And B, it's not actually helping ourselves. All it's doing is postponing dealing with the situation. And it's making it harder rather than easier. It's solving one problem and creating another one that's actually harder to solve.
That's true.
This is our strong request. We live stream this up. Does anyone up there agree with that? Is anyone who agrees with changing the laws of karmic attribution for the benefit of all of us, including yourselves and including us and including those in smaller levels? It actually would work better for all of us.
That's true.
Does anyone agree with that? I do see,
hands.
way up high.
Very high.
Okay, let's send our closing process there. Let's kind of reach
Yes.
up and grab those hands. And we can move up and present our report. Let's us move up. Grab the hand and come up.
Whoosh.